At midnight, a soft knock threaded through my university hostel's quiet corridor and found my door. I was alone, awake, and restless, when my senior, Dev, stood outside with a hesitant smile and 2 steaming paper cups of chai. That night didn't turn wild, it turned tender. This is the story of 2 adults learning to listen, naming our fears, and choosing slow, steady love in a place built for hurry. If darkness has ever felt heavy to you, join me. Breathe, settle in, and let's walk through a night that changed everything, gently, honestly, and with consent. Stay for the quiet miracles. If stories like this help you breathe easier, please subscribe, like, and share this video. Leave a comment about a small kindness you remember. It might comfort someone else tonight. And if you're watching alone, keep water nearby, unclench your jaw, and know you're not alone here. We're listening. Always. Welcome, friend. Tonight, I'm telling you a story that begins in quiet and moves toward something brave. It's a story of 2 adults in a university hostel, over 18, figuring themselves out, choosing tenderness over fear. It's not a scandal, it's not a headline. It's a human moment that became a bridge. Take a breath with me. In, hold for 2, and out. You're safe here. Our hostel always made a different kind of sound after 11 p.m. The day's bluster drifted off the balconies, and what remained felt like the inside of a seashell, hollow and echoing. Doors stopped slamming. Laughter thinned to murmurs. The warden's footsteps, earlier a metronome in the hallway, faded into the guard's gentle cough at the gate below. Anyone who's lived in a hostel knows that hush, the way it cradles you and at the same time shows you your own heartbeat a little too clearly. My name is Arjun. I had just begun my first year, a set of fresh notebooks labeling me like badges I hadn't earned. Classes were a blur, seniors a constellation of names and smiles and warnings to keep my head down until ragging season passed, and the canteen's chai slowly teaching me patience with its stubborn, healing sweetness. That night, the rain was light, and the power had flickered back 2 hours earlier. I'd told my parents goodnight on a choppy call. I'd pretended I wasn't overwhelmed, but in my room B21 on the 2nd floor, the walls felt close. My pinned timetable looked like a puzzle I'd never finish. My chest carried a weight I couldn't name. The darkness wasn't scary, it was honest. The bed creaked when I shifted. My roommate had left for the weekend. The ceiling fan kept doing what it always did, its blades carving circles in the air that made no promises. Let me introduce Dev, the senior who came to my door at midnight. He was a 4th-year student, the kind of person you learn from just by sitting near. Tall enough to be noticed in a crowd, but soft in the ways that matter. He wore his backpack like it was a story he'd been carrying too long. His smile had margins. You could see where it began and how it tried not to tremble when someone else was hurting. He tutored first years in calculus on Saturdays, ran to the gate to receive packages for people who were late, and remembered birthdays without keeping a list. We weren't close, not yet. We'd shared a few conversations after the football practice I tried joining and quickly abandoned. He was the team captain, but he never called the field mine. He called it ours, and when rain sketched silver lines on the grass, he'd run drills that looked like choreography. He'd once said, gently, "You don't need to prove anything today. Just run like you're learning your own rhythm." It was a sentence that stayed. What I haven't told you yet is that both of us were navigating our queerness with care only partly born of fear. This country is a mosaic of courage and quiet, and inside it, we were 2 adults trying to name our longing without setting fire to our lives. We were old enough to sign forms and vote. We were also young enough to mistake silence for safety. Dev carried himself like he'd made peace with the word gay, but I knew because of the way he looked at the sky sometimes, that his piece had chapters. As for me, I was somewhere between naming and not naming. I kept a note on my phone with a list of words: friend, crush, companion, safe, love. I moved them around in my head like tiles on a board, hoping they would spell home. It was exactly 12:03 a.m. I know because I'd checked the time just before the knock, trying to talk myself into sleep. 2 taps, polite, not urgent. A pause. Then 2 more. A rhythm, like someone asking permission. I didn't move at first. In hostels, midnight knocks can mean many things: a prank, a senior hazing ritual, an invitation to watch a match, or a neighbor asking for a charger. I listened. The corridor was quiet. Somewhere a kettle boiled, unattended. I got up, my feet cold against the tiles, and went to the door. Before I opened it, I asked through the wood, because the world had taught me to ask. Who? A pause. Then a voice, low and familiar. It's Dev. Only if you're awake. The if landed, gently between us. It held respect. It told me I could say no. That one syllable was a reminder. We shape each other's nights by the choices we offer. I slid the latch. The door opened a fraction. Dev stood there, hair damp with rain, a hoodie darker at the shoulders where water had kissed it. In his hands, 2 paper cups of chai, steam lifting like questions into the dim. "Hey," he said. "Can I come in for a bit? I realized I hadn't checked on you since practice, and I brought peace offerings." He wobbled the cups and tried not to spill, which somehow made him look younger and made me breathe. "Come," I said, but quietly. "My neighbor is a light sleeper." "I know," he smiled. "He snores when he's awake." Before he stepped in, Dev hesitated. He didn't perform it. He simply lingered in the doorway and gave me space to decide. In therapy terms, that's a consent micro moment. In human terms, it's kindness. "Actually," he said, "do you want to talk now? Or I can leave the chai and go." I felt my shoulders drop. Most stories about midnight knocks don't show you this part, the part where leaving is an option. I looked at the cups, their normal warmth, the rectangle of light from my room falling onto the corridor. I looked at Dev's face and found no urgency, only attention. "Stay," I said. "I could use the company, but let's keep the door a little open, yeah?" His eyes softened. "Absolutely." We left the door ajar. Not as an act of fear, but as a gesture of trust with ourselves. If you're watching this and you've ever wondered how to feel safe around someone you like, remember, you can design the space. Doors can be ajar. Phones can be within reach. Words can be chosen. You are allowed to move slow. Dev stepped inside. He gave me the chai like he was handing me an apology from the world. I took it with both hands. The first sip was a forgiveness I didn't know I needed. We sat on the 2 chairs my roommate and I had scavenged from the common room. Dev placed his cup on the metal table, leaving a ring that would outlast midnight. I wrapped myself in a thin blanket. We spoke in low voices, as though we were protecting the hallway from our admission that we existed. "How was your day?" he asked. A basic question, but asked in a way that made the answer feel worth something. I shrugged. "Big, loud." I pretended to understand 3 lectures and ate a samosa that tasted like nostalgia. He laughed softly. "Nostalgia for what?" "School. Canteen fights over the last jalebi, maybe. Home. Simple things." "Simple things are the hardest to keep," he said, not as a philosopher, but as someone who'd tried. We talked about the weather because it was easier than talking about our hearts. He told me the practice schedule was changing, that he was going to be tied up with project submissions. I asked if he was sleeping enough. He dodged, then admitted he wasn't. He asked if I'd found a barber I trusted. I told him I was loyal to the guy at the gate who called everyone boss. Silences came and went. None of them were heavy. The door breathed behind us, not fully closed. The corridor carried the smell of rain mixed with disinfectant. Dev's hoodie began to give off the smell of drying cotton. After a while, the conversation walked toward the thing we hadn't named. I noticed you looked, somewhere else during practice today, Dev said. Like your body was here, and your mind was learning how to fly without it. I smiled, embarrassed. My mind is ambitious. He nodded. Does it want company tonight, or does it want quiet? The question made me feel oddly seen. Company, I said, surprising myself, but the kind that doesn't mind if I'm quiet. I can do that. He stayed quiet, and in that quiet, the tremors in my chest began to show themselves. I talked, slowly, about being new, about feeling like my feet were on a treadmill and not the ground, about the kind of loneliness you can have in a building full of people. He listened. Not like a rescuer, but like a witness. He didn't dismiss. He didn't fix. He occasionally asked a gentle question, the way a doctor checks your pulse, not to interrogate it, but to understand its rhythm. And, I said, the word catching on my tongue, there's this other part, about who I am, about liking who I like. I don't know the safe words yet. Dev's gaze didn't flinch. Thank you for telling me, he said. And just so you don't have to guess with me, I'm gay. I don't advertise it. I also don't dress it up as something else. But I am careful. The room didn't spin. It settled. Sometimes the scariest thing is naming what your body already knows. He watched me, not for approval, not for a reaction he could use, but to make sure I was okay. His hand rested near his. Tup. Mine was still around mine, warming my fingers. I nodded. Okay, I said. Then again, softer. Okay. If you've ever sat across from someone in the middle of the night and watched them decide to tell you the truth, you know the way their shoulders release a breath before their mouth does. Dev's shoulders did that. He told me about coming, out to a close friend in second year, and learning that love is sometimes a room with a shrinking door. He told me about being careful with the way he laughed, the way he stood, the way he hugged people. He'd unlearned some of it, he said. He was still unlearning. I realized, he said, that shrinking to fit another person's comfort wasn't kindness. It was a kind of hiding that made me lonely in rooms full of light. I asked him if he was angry. Sometimes, he said, but mostly I'm busy choosing where to put my energy. Anger is expensive. We swapped stories like trading cards. I told him about my first crush, a boy who played the guitar in school, fingers moving like sunlight across strings, who once shared his umbrella with me while we ran across the playground. How my entire life had become the geometry of that umbrella, the angle of his arm above mine, the sound of rain on polyester. I told Dev how I had kept that memory like a secret garden, visiting it on days I felt plain. Dev smiled. We all have our umbrella stories, he said. Then his eyes shifted, as if remembering something that hurt and healed in equal measure. For me, it was a bus ride, a stranger who fell asleep on my shoulder. We never spoke. I said nothing. I stared out the window and counted the lights. But for 40 minutes, I felt like a person receiving and giving rest. We talked about family, not about winning them over or hiding from them, but about how you can love people and still keep parts of yourself safe while you learn the timing of your reveal. We talked about teachers who made space and those who didn't. We talked about humor like a life jacket. Do you ever worry that love will come looking and not find your address? I asked, whispering, because for me that was the tender place. He held my gaze. Sometimes, he said. But I also think love is less like a postman and more like a plant. If you water yourself, give yourself light, and don't uproot every time you feel ashamed, love tends to grow near. It recognizes other living things, We said big things in simple sentences while the rain tapped out a lullaby on the window. His foot nudged mine by accident. He said sorry and moved back. Later, when he stretched and the chair creaked, he asked before moving closer, "Can I sit on the floor by your table? My legs are long and the chair is staging a protest." "Please," I laughed. "The chair is weak." He sat on the floor, back against the bed, and leaned his head back. His face was one of those honest faces that speak even when words don't. I sat cross-legged, the blanket over my knees, as if I were a child listening to a bedtime story. But the story was our own, and we were writing it as we spoke. We weren't in a hurry to define what was unfolding, which is maybe why it could unfold at all. Dev picked up a pen from my desk, absent-mindedly drawing squares on a scrap paper. I watched his fingers, not because I wanted to turn the moment into something. It wasn't, but because I wanted to memorize it. The way care looks when it's at rest. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Ask. When you say you're still learning the safe words, what do you want them to be?" The question warmed parts of me the chai hadn't reached. A trusted doctor. Tone is not just about the words. It's about the way they arrive, unhurried, without an agenda. Dev's question didn't feel like a test. It felt like a spare blanket. "I want 'not tonight' to be received like a full sentence," I said. "I want 'I'm not ready' to not be a disappointment. And I want 'yes' to be joyful, not fearful. And I want to be allowed to be soft." He looked like he wanted to hug that answer so it wouldn't be lonely anymore. "Those are beautiful words," he said. "I can honor them." "What are your safe words?" I asked. He thought for a beat. "I want slow to be a friend, not a hurdle. I want check-in to be normal. I want, 'Can we talk in the morning?' to be a sign of respect, not a cooling of affection." We sat with that, the door still, ajar. The corridor a neutral witness. Light from the desk lamp laid a thin gold stripe across the floor between us. I realized, with a small start, that I wasn't afraid of the night anymore. Not because Dev was there, but because I was there with myself, too. The clock read 12:48. Dev stretched again, then looked toward the door. "Do you want me to close it?" he asked. "We can keep it ajar, or open it more, you say." It was a small thing, and it mattered more than large ones. The world rarely hands queer love easy spaces. We create them with furniture and words. "Let's leave it as is," I said. "I like the way the corridor breathes." He nodded. "Me too." He asked if he could sit beside me on the bed, not touching, just adjacent. "Only if it feels okay," he added. I checked in with my body and found a calm there, like the surface of a pond before dawn. "Okay," I said. He shifted, slow enough for me to change my mind if I needed to. He left a palm's width space between us, a geography of care. We talked about nothing, which is another way to say we talked about everything that makes the rest bearable. Memes, failed haircuts, the communal fridge that ate leftovers with the appetite of a small dragon. "Arjun," he said after a while, "can I tell you something without making the night heavier?" "You can." "I came tonight because I saw you from the balcony when the power cut. You were looking at the sky like it might not look back. And I remembered a night like that for me in second year. I didn't have anyone to knock on my door. I wanted to do for you what I needed then." I swallowed. "Thank you." He shook his head. "Thank you for opening the door." At 1:10 a.m., the rain slowed to a mist. Dev stood. "Do you want air?" he asked. "We can go to the roof for 5 minutes. We'll come back." I checked my fear, of being seen, of being misunderstood, then checked the clock, then checked his face. 5 minutes, I said, and we keep space. Agreed. We took the stairs quietly. The guard had dozed off, the television in his cabin a flickering blue pulse. The corridor lights hummed. Our slippers made soft sounds. On the roof, the city opened like a book turned to a fresh page. Water pooled in shallow dips, making small, perfect skies at our feet. The rains had washed the air so everything smelled like beginning. We stood near the parapet, not close to each other, just enough to not feel alone. The campus lights dotted the dark. Somewhere, a stray dog shook rain from its fur. Distant horns stitched a lullaby for insomniacs. Whenever I feel squeezed by the day, Dev said, I look for big things, sky, water, trees. It reminds me I'm not the size of my worry. We let silence do the work. He pointed up. See that? Orion. I pretend I know constellations, I said, but I mostly just name them after food. That's the samosa cluster to me. He laughed, delighted. Then that bright one is clearly jalebi. We wandered the roof perimeter like we were tracing the outline of the night. At the far corner, the breeze picked up, lifting my hair. Dev pulled his hoodie tighter, and then, careful as always, he asked, Do you want my hoodie? I'm okay, I said. But thank you. Just checking. We sat on 2 cinder blocks, our knees level with the horizon. He looked at me. Then, not in a way that demanded anything, but in a way that made room for everything. I like being near you, he said. It feels like my thoughts stop rushing. I like it too, I said. Then, in voice small enough to fit in the night, I like you. He didn't move. He didn't make it a performance. He let the words be alive. I like you, Arjun, he replied, like it was a warm fact. We didn't rush to close the space between us. We let our liking sit beside us, 2 small lanterns in the fog. Back in the room, our 5 minutes having turned gently into 20, we stood again by the bed. I realized in a sudden flutter of panic I didn't fully understand that the room was different now because we were different. Dev noticed my breath. Catch. Check in? He asked. I nodded. I'm okay, just new. New is allowed, he said. He looked at my face like he was reading a page he didn't want to crease. Can I ask something vulnerable? He said. Ask. Can I? Hold your hand for a moment. We can stop whenever. He held out his palm, open, not reaching. I looked at it, then at him, then at my own hand, which had been carrying more than books all these weeks. I placed my hand in his. He closed his fingers gently. That was it. The earth did not tip. The fan continued hovering the same air, but my heart found a calmer chair to sit in. Is this okay? He whispered. It is, I said. We exhaled together. He asked almost shyly, May I kiss you? If not, I'm completely okay to wait or not at all. There was a time I would have interpreted the question as pressure. That night, it felt like an offering with no strings attached. I checked in with the warm animal of my body. I checked in with my safe words. I checked in with the way his hand held mine, not moving, not squeezing, just present. Yes, I said, voice steady. If we can be slow. Slow is my favorite speed, he said. He moved closer enough that I could see the tiny scar near his eyebrow. He waited. I lifted my chin just a little. He kissed me like he was putting a seal on a letter we were both writing. It wasn't urgent. It wasn't trying to prove. It was a hello, a promise of a future where we would keep asking and keep answering. If you're waiting for fireworks, know this. Sometimes the most life changes during small, quiet sparks. You don't have to shield your eyes from. We paused. He looked at me. Breathe, he reminded, smiling. We laughed, nervous joy, honest as rain. If you've ever been cared for after a tender moment, you know how much it matters. Dev sat back, giving me space. How are you? He asked. I considered. Happy. And fragile. In a good way. Like something new that shouldn't be shaken. "Thank you for trusting me," he said. "Anything you need right now?" "Water," I said, surprised at the normalcy of my own answer. He fetched my bottle, and I drank. He drank. We looked at the door. I realized I wanted it closed now. "Can we shut the door?" I asked. "I feel safe?" "Of course," he said. And when he closed it, it wasn't a secret. It was two adults choosing privacy. We talked about boundaries we wanted to keep, and not just tonight. We made a small plan, because plans can hold you when feelings get loud. We wouldn't make our nights heavy. We would check in every time. We wouldn't hide from friends who could be trusted. We'd build a small circle carefully. We would let school be school. We didn't need to turn every corner into a confession. We would honor "not tonight" like the prayer it is. Dev asked if he could put a hand on my shoulder. I said yes. He did, warm and steady. I felt like he had placed a lighthouse on a cliff I had been calling my ribs. "I like us," I said, sounding younger than my age. "Me too," he said, "and I like that we're designing our pace." We talked about disappointment as a part of courage, about how the world might not clap, about knowing our worth without applause. We did not turn the night into a movie. We kept it human. At some point, we grew quiet again. A quieter quiet, the kind that holds you. He lay his head on the edge of the bed, still sitting on the floor, and closed his eyes. "I have an 8 a.m. lab," he murmured, eyes still closed. "But I wish time would let us be generous. Time is a polite thief," I said. He smiled. "Then let's steal something back." We set an alarm together, not for the morning, for 3 minutes, to just breathe with intent. We synced our breaths, not because of a ritual we'd learned online, but because it felt good. In, hold 2, out. We did it until the alarm sighed. We stayed beside the sigh. When Dev left that night, it was nearly 2. He stood in the doorway again and asked with his eyes, "Are we okay?" I nodded. He squeezed my hand, quick, almost formal, and was gone, his footsteps fading into the corridor's hush. The morning found me unafraid of my timetable. The chai ring on my desk looked like a moon, proof that the night had happened and was still happening inside me. In the corridor, Dev passed me unusually normal. We didn't do theater. We exchanged a nod that meant 10 things. In the days that followed, we practiced what we'd promised. We didn't turn our affection into a secret handshake we performed, at the expense of ourselves. We didn't let fear rent space for free. We told one friend each, the careful ones, the ones who love you without turning love into inventory. They treated the information like a fragile plant. No gossip, no press conference, just tenderness. We took walks between lectures that were shorter than our wish list, but long enough to remind us we were building something. We sent each other the kind of text that fit in pockets. Hydrate. You've got this. Eat something green. We apologized when we were snappy. We learned that apology is not a tax. It's a maintenance fee for something valuable. There were hiccups. A weekend I shut down without warning, worried that I had rushed, even though nothing about us was rushed. Dev didn't take it personally. He texted, "Slow?" I replied, "Slow." We took 2 days to let our nervous systems find the floor. Then we met on the balcony and narrated the anxiety like weather. Rain, sun, rain again. No shame. There were delights. A festival evening when the hostel lit up and we stood to the side, watching Diaz bob in shallow tin trays. He squeezed my hand when no one was looking, not to hide, but because magic shared is stronger. A late-night study session where he brought me peanuts and insisted that every correct answer deserved a tiny cheer. We learned to celebrate the very small. Here is what didn't happen. The world did not turn into a parade. Here is what did. We made a little world inside the big one where both of us could be exactly ourselves. It was enough. It was everything. And it still is, because today when I say my senior, I mean the man who knocked like a question and stayed like an answer. And when I say my room, I mean the first place I let myself be loved without bracing. If you're in a hostel, dorm, or living alone, you are allowed to design your safety. If someone asks to enter your space, listen to your body. Yes is yours to give. No is yours to keep. Love can be slow, steady, and adult. It can ask, check, and honor your pace. I promise this would be a story told gently. I hope it felt like someone putting a warm cup in your hands and saying, "You're not strange for needing care. You're human." Dev and I are still learning, still practicing. We're both older now, both busier, both exactly as tender as we were. That night, maybe more. When I think of that midnight, I don't think of danger. I think of a door left a little open, a question asked softly, and an answer that felt like home. If you're watching this in a small room, in a big city, with your thoughts pressing against you, breathe. The sky is larger than your worry. The door can be ajar, and somewhere there is a knock that sounds like kindness. May you hear it. May you offer it. May you keep the parts of you that are still learning safe and loved. Thank you for spending this night with me. Keep water nearby. Text a friend if you can. Be your own gentle senior until someone kind knocks. And if you needed to hear it said plainly, you are not alone.